Hi everybody, my name's Rupin and I'm a conscious parenting coach. Today I'm going to be speaking to you about an experience which I've had recently of a conversation. Somebody that I met, they were a stranger and I don't know them well at all, but we do go to the same gym. We were having a conversation in the sauna. They were talking about how their son wanted to go to the cinema at the weekend and they were planning to take them. The film that their son wanted to see was Hotel Transylvania, but this dad actually didn't want to see Hotel Transylvania and would rather have seen Spider-Man instead. This is the kind of situation which is really important to understand. From a conscious perspective, we want to know exactly what's going on inside within us so that we can make a conscious decision on how to parent our children. I think it's really important to recognize that as a parent, part of your job description is doing things that you don't perhaps enjoy doing. I wonder if this is more difficult for the fathers to understand, partly because the process of having children for men is a lot less strenuous, and the job of creating that new life, which takes 9 months and burdens the female's body, creates that bond within the woman and the understanding that there's going to be a number of things which are uncomfortable and undesirable throughout the process of raising this child. So I wonder if this is the case here, that this father is unable to see that being a conscious and healthy, loving parent involves doing things that you perhaps don't want to do, such as going to the cinema to watch a kids film when you really want to see the adult film Spider-Man. The reason why this conversation came up was because Spider-Man is a 12A. This father was asking, what does 12A mean? And I blurted out and responded that it means that you shouldn't take a 7-year-old. Now this immediately offended them, and he felt that I was being quite rude and blunt. That he left, he walked out of the sauna. And I didn't feel too good about that situation. I wanted to apologize to him and I didn't want to cause any arguments or offense. But having thought about it in depth, I do see myself as on the side of the children. My job is to protect your children and the children who perhaps don't have a voice, and our current parenting culture is that the biological parents are able and allowed to raise their children however they see fit. Now, something like a 12A rating on a cinema film is specifically so that young children don't try to go and see them. 15s and 18s, really important that children who are too young and too emotionally immature to comprehend some of the scenes, to understand that it's a movie, and to not be traumatized and affected by the scenes, which can be quite gruesome, perhaps sex related and misuse of substances, that they are not exposed to that at an early age before they're ready to be able to deal with that information. So I think in this scenario, the dad was asking whether he was allowed to take his 7-year-old boy to watch Spider-Man. And my response was that the 12A rating meant that you shouldn't take a 7-year-old. And I'd love to hear if you guys agree with that. The 12A suggests that you are allowed to bring somebody younger as long as the parent is advised that there's some adult context and that it might not be entirely appropriate for anybody younger. Now, my understanding of that is that like 11-and-a-half-year-olds might be of a more mature age than their specific date of birth suggests. And so somebody whose 12th birthday is coming up really soon but is very capable and mature might find that a film that is 12A is actually well within their levels of maturity and that they can cope with all the scenes that do come up. Now, I definitely disagree with the sentiment of this father that if they are much younger, and in this case the child was 7 years old, that as long as the parent thinks that it's okay, then it's all right to take a much younger child to the cinema. I don't agree with that, and I don't think that that's what the 12A is specifically for. I'd love to hear any thoughts from the viewers, and if you agree or disagree with that point. What I really wanted this father to take away from this situation was that actually there will be scenes in that film that are not age appropriate. The Spider-Man film itself is about a battle and fights, and it's part of the Marvel film series, which has a lot of death, a lot of killing. Uncle Ben, as you know, dies every single time there's a new Spider-Man. Is a dramatic scene for most of us, and I don't think that the death and the killing is going to be age appropriate for a 7-year-old. My feelings on the matter are that we should try to allow children to hold on to their innocence for as long as possible. There will be many, many instances in their lives that force them to grow up faster. But when you're 7, you have a very special level of innocence that you never get back. And whilst you still are unaware of the challenges and sacrifices of the world, it might it could be a parent's responsibility to protect the child and to keep them in their blissful ignorance of the suffering, death, drugs, sex, and pain of the world whilst they still can. I often think about whether there should be some entry requirements to being a parent, and that the notion that the biological parents are allowed to raise their children however they see fit may lead to some unqualified people to be raising children. That at the moment is totally allowed, is the way in which our society works, and is essentially the system that we are all adhering to. I did manage to have a conversation with this person afterwards, and I did let them know that I didn't mean to upset them and that I didn't mean to offend them. And what they said to me was that they had appreciated what I had said as well, and that they were going to watch the film first to see if there was anything in there that was not going to be age appropriate. And that was their attempt to compromise, which I think was really sensible, very mature. I definitely am sure that there is going to be plenty in that film that will not be age appropriate, and that even watching it first is still with the intention of trying to get the child to watch the film, right? Like, I still think that there's a underlying issue there, but at least we're making steps in the right direction. And I'm not here to be a warrior, like to sort of like battle with everybody that I meet and start arguments and try to change the world. I like to share my thoughts, opinions, and concern through my platforms on social media, like my Instagram, which is Rupin Rach, and through YouTube, through my videos. So I really don't want to take on any battles, but am keen where possible to help and to protect any children that I feel are at risk or in danger. And what was very interesting was that this father told me afterwards that in the past, when he was a little boy, when he was 7, he was allowed to watch adult movies. Now, this might just be a generational thing that, back then movies were more accessible, but he mentioned films like The Mummy, some other like sort of like horror films, which would have been like a 15 or an 18, and I don't know if they had 12A back then. So this was a clear generational pattern that his father had allowed him to watch movies which were not age appropriate. And within consciousness, what we can understand is that there's going to be two parts to this. One part is that there's a level of allowable guidance. So if it says 12A, then that means that in his family 12A meant 7 is fine. So there's a level of allowance there. The second thing is that there might be some repressed resentment against his father, and that he is angry and isn't able to communicate that to his father to say, you shouldn't have let me watch those films when I was such a young child. What we can end up doing with that repressed resentment is to issue it to the children in the next generation, and essentially leave the children with the resultant energy and anger. Think of it like this, as the phrase that the unconscious pattern might be saying, well, I had to watch this kind of film when I was 7, and I had to suffer all of the trauma that was related, and I've had to live in the aftermath of watching those films at such a young age. So why should I let you get away with it? Why should I let you mature before you watch those films? And why should I let you not have to suffer in the same ways that I did, like nightmares, not being able to sleep, being fearful, anxiety, afraid of spiders? So those two things are really important to understand within our unconsciousness, that we hold on to that pain, and that it can get passed down as a generational pattern because of the repressed resentment against a parent of ours who didn't protect our innocence like they should have done. So I'm really pleased that I managed to have this conversation afterwards. I am unsure about how much I should speak when I'm in public and with strangers, and I do take care not to talk too openly about being a conscious parenting coach with parents who are clearly unconscious. Not everybody's ready to hear some of the stuff that we talk about, and it's very deep and powerful, and I don't really like to open people's consciousness without giving them fair warning, without them being, one of my clients, and without me being there to hold their hand through the process, because it can be quite a slippery slope into the cavern of our mental health, and I wouldn't wish that upon anybody, let alone a stranger. I think it's a very dangerous thing to just be speaking about conscious awakening, conscious parenting with everybody that I meet. But I am pleased that in this instance we did manage to have this conversation before and after. I hope that my words landed with the protective, positive intention that they were meant with, and we're all growing and all learning. So I'm going to take this as a learning opportunity, and I hope that he does too. I think that it's worth you viewers remembering this as an important story, that the needs of the child should always come above the desires of the parent. The parent wanted to watch Spider-Man. We understand that. It makes a lot of sense. It's a film that the parent wants to watch themselves. So it's kind of like, go with the boys, like go with your friends, go spend some time watching the film, go by yourself if that's not possible. Like, just watch the film, watch it with your partner, watch the film. If you want to watch the film, watch it. Like, nobody's stopping you from watching it. But if you want your child to watch it, there's a question there. What is the reason for that? Why does this person want their child to watch this film that the child has asked to not watch? The child knows about the two films that are on, and they've asked to see Hotel Transylvania. So this is actually the parent trying to fulfill their own desires, and fulfilling their own desires at the expense of the child's needs and, in this case, wish. Well, hopefully you found this video useful. I think it's really good to discuss case studies and situations. If you have any questions or you have any stories that you'd like to share, please feel free to drop them in the comments or shoot them to me by email, which is rupin@consciousparentingcoach.co.uk. I'd really love to hear from you and I'd really love to connect, so please do feel free to reach out. And if you're looking for coaching, if you're struggling with your own mental health issues, if you are looking to understand your children better, if you would seeking deeper connection and would like to parent authentically with peace at the heart and understand your unconscious patterns, do reach out. I have a link to book a discovery call for one-to-one coaching. If you just want to get started and do a taster session, book in for 4 sessions. If you want to go all in and see how it goes, I would suggest by starting with 12 sessions and then we can work our way from there. The first call is 30-minute free discovery call. You don't have to pay for that. It's just an informal chat and we'll get to know each other and find out if we can work together. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for staying till the end. And if you like this video, please click the like button, subscribe and share it with your friends so that they can see and start to understand their unconscious patterns and how we can learn to become more conscious, especially in the context of parenting. Thanks so much for